Live streamed.
We're
Got
live,
it.
ready?
We good, Steve?
I guess we're live. Are we live?
Yes.
It
Live
happens-
streams.
It happens every episode.
Got it. Oh, that's funny.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is season 2, episode 15. It is the final episode. It is the last hurrah. This is the last time in this format that we're going to get together and do podcasts with Bayshore alumni and graduates talking about the history of what is the greatest Christian private school in the history of American education, and that is Bayshore Christian School. And I am joined by my very special guest hosts. They served as guest hosts throughout the last 2 years doing these podcasts. First, Melissa Charlene, affectionately known by me as Missy Cabot, who just got finished calling John Harville Sir. And then my good friend, long time friend, going back to the original gangster era, John Harville. Thank you, both of us, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So to get started, I mean, the plan here is for anybody watching, we're hoping to say all the thank yous we can think of, cover some subject matter that we wanted to get to that we never got to, like what shows we wanted to do, who we wanted to interview that we couldn't, revisit the top 25. And I'm sure there's going to be several questions from our guest hosts as well. Wanted to start first by just reiterating, a lot of these shows are repetitive because you don't know who's going to watch all of them, probably nobody other than our family members, but just to repeat, Bayshore mattered. And this started with Chris Pate. You can see my friend in the background there, Christian Emerald Pate, going back to the Brandon boys. We've been friends since elementary school. He's a class of 87 Bayshore grad. He and I were watching Hillsborough County hoops during COVID, all the lockdowns. And of course, we sympathize. We've lost good friends. We're going to talk about tonight, like former faith warriors to COVID. It's a serious matter, and it's definitely been great harm to the country, and we certainly pray for those who have struggled through it. But as a lot of us were sitting through lockdown with not much to do, we're watching Hillsborough County hoops on Facebook Live, counting down the top 25 players of every high school in Tampa, Florida. And when they get to Bayshore, they're listing several guys who didn't graduate from there, and some guys that are like, I mean, I'm sure they're nice people. I didn't play with them, but they were not what we would have thought would have been top 25. And so we wanted to do our own list. How do we come up with that? Chris starts this Facebook page. In the early days, he was trying to get me to be an admin, and we couldn't figure out how to add me as an admin. So Chris would come up with all these ideas, and I would end up doing all the work once I was able to get onto Facebook, and didn't mind doing all the work. And that is sort of how this got started. But it's very important to remember, it started as a basketball page because Bayshore basketball had a significant impact on the city of Tampa. And it sort of is, for me, the story of Bayshore. It goes Herman Valdez, a legendary high school coach, arriving to take charge of this small private school on South McDill. That is sort of the story of Bayshore when you think about it. And so we were excited to do this page. We started it up, and just a lot of people started helping. The first person to help, well, let me get to the thank yous later, because I like to turn it over to my guest hosts and let them get started with the things they'd like to share or ask. And we'll first turn it over to Missy Cabot. Missy, you're up first.
Oh boy. Oh man. No pressure.
Right.
I was just thrilled to be a part of all of it, and even 5 minutes before we went live, that I announced on accident when I figured out we were live. John was sharing such a neat thing about my dad as a teacher. I mean, as a student in my dad's class. And so, I can't believe it's been 2 years. When you said that, I was like, whoa, I can't believe that. And then in that same way, I can't believe it's been 2 years. I can't believe it's been since 1979 for me, in a way, that we've recapped, and that 1979 that I was born into this faith warrior family. And then 42 years now that I've, once a member, always a member. So it's just learning so much about even my own family, even my brother, it was just such a neat thing for me. And then every single time we reconnected with an old friend. It was like just picking up where you left off, no matter if it was in the past year or in the past 5 years or in the past 30. So I'm rambling like usual, but I'm glad to be here, and I'm just thankful to have been along for the ride. And there was been 50 years of amazing Bayshore history that mattered and will always matter because of legacy and future generations that will continue benefiting from what we learned and what we impart. And there'll be 50 more, I'm sure, to come. So
That's exactly right. And I can't thank you enough for being here, because you're such an important part of Bayshore, and we've become friends. And before I turn it over to John, I mean, she just hit it right on the head. This is the 50th anniversary school year for Bayshore. A lot of schools don't make it this far. We've mentioned before what's gone. Temple Heights is gone. Lakeland Evangel is gone. River Hills Christian is gone. Good Shepherd is gone. The number of schools that used to be prominent players in Tampa athletics as private schools are no longer around. Yeah, Bayshore keeps going, and that's God's blessing on that ministry, and it's a testament to all the people that have come through it. John, we'll let you get started with your first comment or question, joining us here on the final episode of the Alumni Podcasts.
All right, great. Thanks, Steve. First, guys, Melissa, you're a teacher. I'm a teacher. Don't be afraid to interrupt, because I'll get talking and I can talk forever. My wife tells me that I'll talk to a wall and it'll take me 25 minutes before I realize the wall's not going to talk back to me. So if I'm talking too much, just go ahead and tell me to be quiet and you can jump in, okay? So first, Steve, I want to thank you and Chris, man. I really wish Chris would have been on this.
Yeah.
I really do, man. It was a definite blessing. I know the first time I was on, I said, I got a call from my mom. Do you remember Steve Rodriguez? And I said, of course. He wants me to give him your number. And, you called. At that point, I still had a flip phone. I'd never been on Facebook, and the doors that it opened and the people that I reconnected with was probably like the very first blessing I got coming to Bayshore. It's been amazing for me. And man, I watch all these podcasts, and they're all tremendous, listening to the history of Bayshore, because in a sense, I feel like I'm part of that foundation. I know Bayshore was there before I got there in 1982, but I feel like with Coach Valdez coming and the first team that he had, which I was a part of, not a big part, but I was a little part of it. And
yes, you were. And let me interrupt real quick. Not only were you a big part, you're an integral part of that 3-year run. Real quick, and I'll let you keep going. Tree White is waving hello to everybody. So that's pretty cool. Brian Whiteside is there as well. We've got a bunch of people watching, so I thought I'd mention that. John, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And just, when we got there, the school was struggling, about to go under. I think, Coach had told us years later, bankrupt. And, I feel like I was a part of, years later when I was in college and my dad would tell me how good the teams were doing. I felt I was like a part of that I helped, a real small part. Coach Valdez was the architect, and John and JoJo and Kenny, they played a more significant role, but it was very touching. And to this day, with all this going on, I feel like I was one of the first ones at the school with Coach Valdez, and, to bring some publicity. Of course, it was all Coach. He would believe me. He would have figured this out without me for sure, but it's an honor, and it's an honor to be on these podcasts. I appreciate it.
Real quick, already we've got some comments online. Scott Crone says, Coach Harville, you're already talking too much. So that's really funny.
He was a student of mine. I can talk too much. So Steve, let us go ahead and jump in and start asking you some questions.
Yep.
Okay. So like you always start off with, why don't you tell us, what's been going on with you since you graduated from Bayshore in 1986?
Well, I've been in hiding in the Turks and Caicos for a long time. No, just kidding. I mean, very fortunate. When I left law school, I came back to Bayshore and walked in the gym, and I think it was like an open gym. So everybody's playing. Coach Valdez says, "Hey, come meet this guy. he might need some help coaching. And I'm like, I just got back. Hello. And it was John Ursia who ran girls basketball. So I've been back in Tampa for like 3 months, 1994, 95, I can't remember. And I'm already on campus helping out. So that happened. And of course, got married in 98 and had to move. So moved away from Bayshore. And so I that was the end of my really close connection to the school, was around 1998. Got to see the Elijah Piazza season with Drury. And then I got into coaching, which I coached against Dibble, Tom Dibble. When he came back to Bayshore, he beat the snot out of my school pretty badly twice. Bayshore ran us into the ground. So, the 1990s just working. Late 90s got married, had kids in the early 2000s, been very blessed and very fortunate. And, here we're in Atlanta. And like we said before, the COVID hits and we're trying to find something to do. And there's some basketball stuff online. And so let's start a Bayshore page. And I mean, you can't thank people enough. I want to go ahead and thank some people if y'all let me real quick. I mean,
oh yeah, please go ahead.
Starting with Brian Bolyard, the first guy. No, Brian wasn't first. Dwayne Pippin. So we start the Facebook page and there's nothing on it. And Pippin and I had our phone. We had still had phone numbers, connections to one another. So I texted him to see if he had. Oh no, I asked Coach Valdez, Coach, you have any videos? And Coach says, no, I haven't had any over the years. They've all been taken by former players, but you should check with Dwayne Pippin. So I checked with Dwayne. Dwayne happens to have like every freaking video from the 1980s and 90s, every scorebook, everything. So I constantly joke with him how he stole it all from Coach Valdez. But Pippin was the first one to come up with video. He had a bunch of 80s video that was really good. He had the 1994 state Final Four game, 1994 state championship game, I think so. Pippin was really good. Then we want to thank Brian Bolyard. Brian Bolyard was the first person to contribute yearbooks. He was on the Bayshore board. I connected with him because Coach Valdez was sharing with me a bunch of stuff about what the school was dealing with outside of academics, some legal stuff. And so I was trying to help there. That's how I got connected with Brian. Diane Page, which is Diane Brooks, Mrs. Brooks's daughter, gave a lot of yearbooks. We want to definitely thank her. Connected with her through Jared Piazza. Amanda Bush, one of the 1990s girls there with Missy. Her last name I never pronounced correctly. It's Kiavangsa, I think. She delivered some yearbooks. So all of the pictures and stuff, that nostalgic memories from the pictures that you see have a lot to do with a bunch of people. Melanie, of course, the principal, she delivered yearbooks. Mike Blocker, rest in peace. And we've talked a lot about Mike. We really, really miss him a lot. And he was able to get us the first the videos for the first time in 30 plus years, the 87 Final Four and the state championship game with Kelvin Daniels. Definitely want to thank his family, Francesca, Kevin Noriega, who helped get those videos delivered. Some of our rivals, Steve Logeman from Shorecrest. Logeman, I just looked up on the internet what he was doing and found his phone number from his business. And Logeman delivered the 1984, what was then called the regional final. It was the, I think, Sweet 16, and then you have Elite 8 versus Kings Academy. So you guys playing over there at Shorecrest, one of the great Bayshore wins of all time, because it involved a lot of Coach Valdez strategy and tactical planning to help win that game, because they had beaten y'all, I think, once or twice before.
Twice, yeah. If I could jump in, Steve, probably even the public school guys that we played, man, probably other than Chris Corciani, Logeman was probably the best player that we played against, in my opinion. Man, he was the real deal.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And he would go on to a big time career.
He had a great career at Flagler.
Flagler, that's right.
Yeah, Flagler College. I played against him in college for 2 years. 2 or 3 years, but man, high school, he was the real deal, man. 6'3", 6'3.5", point guard, could post up. Man, he was really good, man, for sure. Great high school basketball player.
And Missy, you guys, I mean, young people, they think all of this modern technology, you get a phone, digital, whatever. Getting that videotape was hard to pull off. Logeman had saved all of his tapes. Very fortunate. That game is a historic game, and that's the only record of it. Nobody'd seen it 36, 40 years, whatever it had been. Mrs. Erickson, Gigi Erickson, who appeared on one of our podcasts, delivered all kinds of pictures. She delivered, she got Mrs. Fuller to deliver the 1985 senior classes slides. Young people, again, don't know what those are. They're like slides. You put them in a little machine, you show it up on the wall. So we got all of those pictures. All of these people really contributed. Bo Heinley got us the Miracle at Ramey. That was a chore to get a hold of you, Bo. So if you're watching, Bo, thank you. But also, I'm very mad that you made us work so hard to get it. Bo provided a bunch of video that's still ready to post, and we will be posting. Chris and Bob Fitzpatrick gave us 98, 99 videotapes of games, got the whole season, got about 3 or 4 games up. We'll be able to load those over the next several months. Looking down my list, I do not want to forget anyone. And if you're watching and I forget you, please list it, and I'll make sure to mention you. Those are the ones that stick out first. Obviously, Melissa and the 1990s cheerleaders literally is what launched this thing into global recognition for podcasts, because that changed the nature of entertainment in one evening, just like that. So I think I answered your question a little bit. I mean, that's what's happened to me. Was at Bayshore during the 90s, got married, moved away, practicing law in Atlanta, have kids. One's in college. One is playing class 7A high school basketball at a big game the other night. So I'm a very blessed man, undeserved. I thank the Lord every day for salvation, for forgiveness, for accepting repentance, and what he has done for my family. I'm very thankful. And then of course, very thankful we've been able to do this podcast. So I think that covers all of it for now. Back to you.
Okay, you have any questions? Melissa?
Melissa, you're up next.
My question for Steve is, well, first, let me back up before I have a question. I'm just going to tell you that I rushed straight from work today to get my daughter and my son to drive them to my daughter's basketball game, which was in Spring Hill. It's like straight after school, like barely changing clothes, and and then we went straight there, and then we came straight home. And you have been doing this the whole season, the whole 2 years. Well, at least since whenever lockdown quit and you guys went back to playing ball, and your kids, you have 2 playing ball, right?
One now, one left playing.
But at one time when you were doing this, you had a lot of ball going on.
Well, I coached, so I had like a whole team. There's a lot going on. You're exactly right.
Holy Hannah. So yeah, just a couple times I've done this, and it's nonstop. And then now with my daughter playing basketball, I'm like, how did he do this? Like, anyways, so you clearly, won't be, you'll have a little bit more time for all the other stuff you have going on. But what is like, I don't know, what do you foresee moving forward with the page, or with the, I mean, the unofficial page will always be the unofficial page, I guess, right?
Yeah. That's a very good question, because other people have asked that as well off the page. Like, hey, is it going to still be there? The Facebook page will remain, and we will still have content to put up. Mostly game video from 2001, 1999, and then the Bo Heinley files. So those are 3 early 90s through 2001. We'll have lots of videos still to put up. So we're asking people, if you've got video or pictures, please send them in. And obviously you laugh because, Melissa, the next time I'm in Tampa, we'll be driving by the Cabot residence to pick up all of those scrapbooks. So the page will still be there. We'll be still putting content. We really like 21st century grads to sort of take over and tell their story. Like, I think we've done the best job we can to cover 1972 or 3, whatever it was, through about 2001. And I think we've done a real good job of getting all the yearbooks we could, all the video, all the pictures. There might be more, but the 21st century graduates need to step up and contribute as well. And that's what we'd like to see. But yeah, the page will still be there. So that's very good, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like, when you and Chris first started up and you had envisioned just sort of basketball banter, and then we ended up opening to all Bayshore athletics, and then really it opened up to ministry, and I mean, the possibilities are endless here. But I know we've got a big 50th celebration coming up, And do you have any details? I don't know who's going. How can we let people know we're going in case we're able to, rustle up more attendance? Or I don't know where to, and I could call the school, but that's not going to happen. So
Yeah. So very good. On the page, we will keep reposting it. There's a link where you can go and sign up for stuff you want to do. And it just maybe just go and eat, but there's alumni volleyball game, there's an alumni basketball game, there's alumni soccer game, and it's all on Saturday, January 15th. So
okay.
if you remember that date, we'll keep letting people know. I plan on, I hope to be in Tampa that weekend. That's the plan. I know Chris Pate is in Tampa. And if you're going, please let people know, maybe write it on the Facebook page. Hey, I'll be in town for homecoming. We'd love to see everybody there. It'd be a great time for all of us that have sort of interacted here digitally to actually see one another in person. That would be great. So yeah, January 15th is the homecoming for the school. And the plan is for a lot of activities. You can participate a little or a lot. And I certainly hope to be there. That's a good question. And you bring up another point, if I could share. This page, I mean, it was supposed to be about just basketball. And I can tell you right now, my friend behind me here, that's all you wanted to talk about was sports. There were people that, and we've told this before, so it's repetitive, but it's important to say since it's the final episode, there were people that reconnected through this page. And and the reconnection, and it was a lot, like you would say, like you would imagine, but there were some people that needed to reconnect. They needed help in some way, whether it was a ministry type help or a health issue, and they actually found a fellow alumnus who helped them with that issue. And it brings tears to your eyes when you hear the story of how this need was there and it was met by someone from Bayshore that they reconnected with here on the page. So certainly was a blessed endeavor, a God thing endeavor, and more than just talking basketball. And I'm glad that happened. That's really good.
Yeah.
Right. Are you
Oh,
you still have some questions, Melissa?
I think she's got another one.
Okay.
I just have another special guest co-host real quick that wants to say hi.
Hey.
Hey there, buddy.
Hi.
You have the greatest
Hi.
mom in the world. You're very fortunate.
Yes, I am.
Oh, good job. Good answer, buddy.
Very
I have to
good.
pay him later now. I have to pay him $10. Hey, what's up?
Very good.
Okay, so Steve, you
Yes.
mentioned about the podcast being more than just basketball, but for me, the questions are all going to be about basketball.
Right.
So let me ask you. So
Oh, your
you
father.
come to Bayshore my senior year towards the end of the season. Basketball's over with. You got to play some baseball. You got to play some open gym with us. But you guys, Tomasello, Patterson, Danny Strickland, you guys are going to be the first team that Coach Valdez coaches without John Edwards, without Jojo Santiago, without some pretty solid players. What was the expectation for you guys as players, and what was Coach's demeanor and his expectations, and what was he like after having 3 years of one of the best point guards or guards in the history of Tampa, and John Edwards, and Steve Heston and Kenny Cox and Kenny Brown and Mike Kendall? What was it like going into that senior year?
Well, you mentioned a lot of great names there, and some of them I hope we get to when we ask the question about who was not on the top 25 team, because there's some of those that didn't make it that a lot of people would say, why not? And it's a really good question, because if you study Bayshore history, again, just to repeat like at the start, Bayshore's history to me revolves around the Herman Valdez legend. Because before he arrived at Bayshore, Herman Valdez was one of the most legendary high school basketball figures in all of Florida before arriving to Bayshore, And so he comes to Bayshore, which had never had a winning season, and immediately, thanks to you guys and the original gangsters, put together a 3-year run unlike any other. 19-6, 22-7, 22-5, state Final Four, district championship, multiple college signees. And as you said, the preeminent point guard, the original point guard, John Edwards. So that's a lot. So the first reaction as all those guys are at graduation, I'm watching you guys graduate, is fear, trepidation, and a heavy weight, because you don't want to fail your classmates. You want to represent the school well. You don't want to fail your teammates, but most of all, you want to live up to the tradition that has now been established. And one of the things, I don't know that we've gone into great detail. We talked about it in the first episode ever when me and Chris did the first episode, and then we did it maybe again in Brandon Boys. Fred Tomasello and I had been to Bayshore games to watch. We literally watched you play with heavy head of hair, which is somehow missing today. Very thick black mustache. Herman Valdez is, Latin, he's Spanish. Fred and I are Spanish. We got our big old gold medallions hanging down on our mustache. And we are thinking in our mind, how wonderful it'd be to play at Bayshore Christian before we even know anything about Bayshore Christian. And we read the newspaper, and you had the original Tampa Tribune article. Coach Valdez is screaming, picture of John Edwards, Kenny Brown, and it covers the whole page of the prep section. So this whole mythos of Bayshore Christian is already in our minds. And then I meet you. We're sitting in line at the Brandon Plant City. They're selling tickets for the Brandon Plant City rematch. Brandon is ranked 5th in the country, USA Today, and had been upset by Plant City at their gym. So people don't realize it today because a lot of people don't go to high school games. Back then, that sucker was sold out, and there was a line around the block to buy tickets at 3:00 in the afternoon. And you and I just happened to be in line together, standing side by side. And Tomasello and Pate left me there with the money. So I'm the one that had to suffer in line. Well, they got to leave. But getting to know you and your father, and I think that you guys had me buy the tickets for you. You had to leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had to leave. My dad gave you the money. We're walking to the car, and I said, man, we're shit out of luck, man. That guy's going to take our money. We're going to come back and not have any tickets, man. And my dad told you where to meet us, and you were solid, man. We came back. You had our tickets and even the change because my dad gave you like a 20.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's classic.
Yeah, Brandon ends up winning that game only by 5. That Brandon Plant City thing was really big back in 84. I think it was 83 or 84. And then, of course, Brandon blew him out in the district title. But the point being, Herman Valdez to us is godlike, lowercase g. You guys, Edwards with the mustache, Santiago, you with the mustache. I mean, y'all look Spanish to us, so we wanted to be with the Cuban crowd. And then, of course, when I get expelled from my school, it's either Armwood or Brandon. And my dad happened to know. I said, well, what about Bayshore Christian? Because my mom was going to make me go to a Christian school. Brandon Armwood wasn't going to happen. And my dad then discovers Herman Valdez he used to swim with at the YMCA. All of this led to me ending up at Bayshore. And it's an amazing story because it leads to that Brandon wave. People don't realize it wasn't just Kelvin Daniels going to the state championship with Chris Pate, Patterson, Donnie Amlin, Blocker, all those guys, Patterson. There was a wave of students, if you look in the yearbook, that we knew from Brandon, like 30 or 40 paying students. So the tuition revenue spikes, the size of the classes spikes when I got expelled and went to Bayshore. As a lot of people followed us. They weren't following me, it's just that they knew that kid was going to Bayshore and they didn't want to be at that school anymore. So let's go to Bayshore. When we had the Herman Valdez basketball school champions during the summer, Bernard came up to me and said, I'm moving back with my dad in Cincinnati. So the weight of representing the school and living up to the tradition got even heavier.
Bernard Staley transferred in my senior year, 6'8", as a sophomore at Leto, averaged 7-8 points a game, 8 or 9 rebounds, and 3 or 4 blocks.
Right.
And so played with us his junior year, going to be your senior year. Bernard would have been, the focal point of the team offensively and defensively. And then
Yeah,
you
I mean,
discover he's moving back to Cincinnati, Ohio.
that's exactly right. We were playing 2-on-2 against Kuda Patterson and Charlie Bradley at the end of Thursday of the camp. The camp's over, but you're hanging around in the gym, and that's when he tells us. And it was just a knockout blow.
I bet.
So because Renard, you mentioned his stats, they were low, but that was because y'all had a great team. You had balanced statistics. He, as a center, as a senior, would have been a dominant force in Hillsborough County, and that really changed the dynamic for us. But it also, I think, led, it's God's plan. It's what it meant to be. I mean, that 1986 team Herman calls the toughest he ever had. Now is because, I mean, we had the ethos of the original gangsters. I mean, the street fight in us allowed us to still have a great season and serve as a bridge season to the 87 team, which of course ended up being the greatest in school history.
Yeah, that 86 team, I was in Tennessee at school. And when I came home, like the first time I came to a practice or a game, coach immediately told me, man, if you guys thought you guys scraped and scrapped, you should see these two guys, Rodriguez and Tomasello, man. And he said, man, they would have fit right in with you guys. And yeah, man, he loved you two guys, man. He loved your spunk for sure.
Yeah, and we loved him. I mean that you and I have talked about this before, and we'll turn to Melissa here in a second for the next set of questions. I got Scott Cronin commenting that Coach Valdez is the Bobby Bowden of basketball, and he's asking if we knew Jeff Turner from Brandon. We knew Turner, but he was before us. So Jeff Turner,
I played against him.
Yeah. So Turner
and he was on that. He was at that camp when Bernard and Shinson's got in that fight. Turner was there.
Going to Gator camp and getting in a fight is like a regular occurrence in the 80s for baseball.
Yeah.
Turner ended up in the NBA, played, I think, at Vanderbilt, and he would always come to Sadie Park and Brandon, so we always played with him, but he was a few years ahead of me. There was another question you asked that I forgot, but yeah, so that answers the Scott Crone thing. I don't remember what else I was going to say, so we might want to turn it over to Melissa. Melissa, what's your next question?
Oh, no, I was still trying to process the fact that these games you're talking about, I was actually like 4 years old, and I probably maybe 5, I could have been 5, but wait, you said 83, right?
My first year at Bayshore was 1982, 83.
Right.
But even then, I probably had my first cheerleading uniform because somebody would have handmade it. If it wasn't my grandmother, it was someone at the school or something. And, I was thinking like how this is not this is not a question, first of all, and it's definitely not where you were thinking I was going, but the basketball, like now, like of all the sports, you can watch and enjoy, basketball is like the one that I can watch the whole game, like beginning to end, and I can get into the game, and it's because I learned it at Bayshore. So not how to play it for sure, but like, I don't know. I was just thinking as you're telling these stories, and I'm like, well, of course I don't really know who you're talking about or what games, but I was probably there at a lot of them. It's just been a neat, it's been neat, like to grow up in it as a spectator, and then of course as a cheerleader, but then also now that my kids, my daughter loves to play, my son loves to play. So, well, I don't know. That's just another neat thing, I guess, that Bayshore gave me that I never really considered, especially now. We live in different households, I have to share them 50% of the time. So it's neat to see too, how like just the basketball in general, like I could watch those games when they're not with me and still enjoy them. And then when we're together again, we can still talk about it and keep, like, the season still goes no matter which parent they're with. So it's just a lot of neat, just a lot of the same, like just Bayshore rocks. Go Bayshore.
That's exactly right. You famously said, Melissa, during this, and we say it's 2 years, it's really been about 19 months, but you have a famous quote we put on the Facebook page where you had a front row seat to all of this wonderful history. And that is so true. I mean, Bayshore Christian per capita, if you're a parent thinking about putting my kid in school, listen, my kids go to public school. If we were in Tampa and my kids do have a basketball aptitude, they would have gone to Bayshore because of their basketball aptitude. But you got to send your kid where God places on your heart. Is it close enough? Can you afford it? All those things go into those decisions. But in general, once you get down to deciding amongst private schools, if it's close enough to drive to, Bayshore has the leading director of the of Merck International Laboratories, who's in charge of infectious diseases and saving the world. The guy who runs the F-35 stealth fighter program for Lockheed Martin is a Bayshore graduate. In the fine arts, we had the little girl recently who designed the logo for the Super Bowl last year.
Super Bowl. Yeah.
The per capita impact in every community from Bayshore Christian is unequaled. So if you're considering, where should I send my kid? Well, if you can drive to Bayshore Christian and you're going to spend the money, you can afford it, you have to choose Bayshore Christian. It's not, there's no other option. And I would tell parents that all the time. It is a special place. How would you have three people in their 40s and 50s, 40 years later, talking about their high school days on a podcast for 19 months? That's only because it's a God impacted, a blessed of God campus and school. And we are all better for it and thankful for it. So next question, next set of questions.
You're up, John.
Okay. Well, when you said about 40s and 50s, Steve, I'm actually a senior citizen. I'm 55, brother.
That's right.
I don't feel it.
I'm 53, so I'm right there.
Yeah, you're getting there. So my next question, Steve, would be, for me, when I think of Bayshore basketball or Bayshore in general, which I think frequently, there's two names that always pops up in my mind, first and foremost. Coach Valdez, of course, and John Edwards. And I've said on here before, I'm taking John Edwards. I mean, there might have been people who played at a, better college or whatever, but for high school basketball, I'm sticking with John Edwards. He laid the foundation for all this. So those are the two names for me. What names did, pops into your mind when you think of Bayshore basketball? If you're just driving along and something comes up and you think Bayshore basketball, what are the names that pop into your mind?
That to me is an impossible question because I played there. I was there before I started playing. When I was there in your era, I played there. I went to every game when I was in college at the University of Tampa, basically. Then I coached there in the 90s. So there's 2 decades around Bayshore basketball. So the first thing is, that seems like an impossible question. You start with Herman. I mean, Coach Valdez is a second. I lost my father a couple months ago. I would tell you that outside of my father, he's the most important man in my life ever. Herman is everything. I looked up to the man before he even knew I was. Like I told you, me and Freddie were worshiping Bayshore basketball, just desperate to be able to go to that type of school and play for that type of man. So it starts with Herman Valdez. And then, I don't want people to think you got Jonathan Johnson in the 90s. When you think Bayshore basketball, it's pretty hard to not think of him. He's all-time leading scorer. There's nothing remotely close to Derek Smith in terms of showtime. Brian Peterson as an overall dominant basketball player and good person and great character. How do you get a better representative than that? Kelvin Daniels is the most accomplished basketball player in the history of Hillsborough County. Like they give less awards now. I mean, for the number of awards that were given in 1987, he got all of them. Nobody's ever done that before. So you can think of all those names, but so I'm not kissing your rear end to say this. It's actually you, because again, the long flowing dark hair, the mustache, and when I finally got to Bayshore, I've told this story on previous podcasts, but after school every day before baseball practice, you and I would play one-on-one. And I'll never forget, you just back me down. You're ahead 3-0. And then I'd finally win a game and I'd be like, yeah, man, let's go. We're playing best of 7. And you go, oh, Rodriguez, I didn't realize we were actually trying in that game. And then you beat me 16-2 the next game. I mean, those
exaggerate a little.
No. I'll never forget the first time I saw you with that mustache and you had black hair everywhere, black hair on the legs, one of those tidy shorts that we used to have to wear. You were scoring, you scored 8 points, I think, in a quarter against Jesuit. And that was on the Friday that Miami lost to Doug Flutie on the miracle pass in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
We saw Flutie throw the pass, jumped in the car and drove to Jesuit or Tampa Catholic, wherever it was, to watch you guys. So
Tampa Catholic, me and John Edwards did the same thing. We thought we were
Right.
going to be late. We couldn't leave. We watched the game and then jumped in his car and went to Tampa Catholic.
right.
Yeah.
So it's you and Herman. I mean, I wouldn't have been at Bayshore basically if I had not met you. So my dad
Thanks.
knew her. My dad knew Herman, but my parents were thinking, Temple Heights. Dear God, I mean, I'd had to kill myself. I mean, I know. Sorry, I shouldn't say that sort of stuff nowadays. Politically incorrect, but that's the way '80s people talk. I would have had to kill myself and I ended up at Temple Heights. So
Yeah.
that's the sort of stuff they were thinking about, Baptist schools and things like that. And it was
Mhm.
because I had met you that I was able to tell my dad, hey, what about Bayshore Christian? And then he knew Herman, and here we are, 30, 40 years later. So that's what I think about with Bayshore. Bayshore, outside of family stuff, your wife and your children obviously come first in everything. God first, then family. No question. And the next in line for me is my time at Bayshore. That was the most important thing I've ever done. I've had cases before the Supreme Court, not my case, but I'm one of the lawyers with the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office that went and appeared before the Supreme Court for stuff related to housing back in Tampa back in the 90s. Lots of stuff that's happened professionally. I've had lunch in the White House with the first Bush with only 12 people in the lunch. And that was so cool. And you take pictures, and nothing matters to me more than playing for Herman Valdez at Bayshore Christian. Nothing. I'm not making it up. I've said it for decades. So that's what I think about. Those are the two people that I think of, and that's how important Bayshore is to me.
Well, I feel the same way, Steve, about accomplishments. I've never eaten in the White House or argued before the Supreme Court. I'm, not very accomplished, but the greatest accomplishment for me, man, was, like I said earlier, being part of that team that brought some recognition and helped get you guys in. Up until about 2001 or so, 2002, 2003, Derek Smith, all those guys, I felt like I had a little small part, in that taking place. And to this day, that's a great honor for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bayshore definitely, there was the Lord had his hand in it. We could talk all night of, how I ended up there, how John Edwards and, then you and everybody else, man. It was definitely the Lord had a plan. And you were a Christian, before you came to Bayshore. A lot of us weren't. My family, we went to church on Sunday, Easter Sunday, and that was about it. If it wasn't for Bayshore, there'd be a lot of people not having their ticket punched to heaven, not having a Mr. Cabot or a Miss Jordan showing us the way. There'd be a lot of lost souls.
That's very important to say. I had a salvation experience at 5 years old. A lot of people tell this story and then they can't remember. So then at 14 years old, I had a salvation Romans Road prayer to ask Christ into my heart with my pastor, my youth pastor. And so that was my moment of salvation. But a lot of us, I shouldn't say a lot, I'm going to speak for myself, get away from God. And one of the things that brings you back,
Yes.
along with God's plan, everyone's praying for you. But one of the things that mattered was there was still male Christians. Bayshore and Herman represented Christian men that were not, like we said off the air, goofy. Melissa's father, Mr. Cabot, was a man of ministry, and yet I respected him. And that, I think, was very crucial in being able to rededicate your life later in life when you're older, get back to Christ, as you have memories or examples in your life of people that do serve God and have a testimony in a way that you can respect and believe in. That was very important to have that example in my life. So I agree completely with what you said. So that was really good. Yeah, Melissa's up.
I don't know what to say. Melissa doesn't know what to say.
We gave you the list.
I know, but remember I couldn't open it because after I downloaded it, and then I never sent you my email address.
So okay, so I'm gonna
just give me the cue, Melissa, and I'll take over if you want.
John's turn.
I got a ton of questions for Steve if you want me to go.
Hey, Well, I'd like Melissa to ask her brother why he has a mean emoji, an angry emoji on the Facebook page. Did we say something to anger him? So we need to find out why he's
Okay.
mad.
Uh-oh,
Brother.
hope not.
Why is there a mad emoji? What's going on?
Right. So Harville, what's up next? I mean, we got a lot. We got to talk about top 25. We've already been.
Yeah. Okay.
We
So
got greatest episode. I definitely want to talk about that because there is only one greatest episode.
okay. All right. So my next question would be, again, like for me, when you talked about Coach Valdez, like there's a Coach Valdez guy. You hear that a lot with coaches, certain players that are, Tony Dungy type of guys, or, Mike Krzyzewski guys. And who do you think of when you think, like a Coach Valdez guy? To me, the one that comes to my mind, you already mentioned it, was Freddie Tomasello. Being Spanish, Coach Valdez started talking to me in Spanish when I first got there. I was like, Coach, I'm dark, but my last name's Harville. My mom has some Spanish in her. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. So he could talk to Freddie in Spanish.
Yeah, but everybody from West Tampa, you were from West Tampa. Everybody from West Tampa can speak Spanish.
Yeah.
That's what he thought. That's what he thought.
Yeah, right. He used to say I had the Cuban butt. That's about the only thing Cuban that I had in me. But Tomasello is the epitome of a Valdez guy. To me, when I think of Coach Valdez, tough, never giving up, sacrificing, just hard nosed, and then of course the Latin plays a part of it. But that's who I think of. Like, there's quite a few guys, but he's kind of at the top of my list. Who would you say in your time, coaching, playing, would be like, your number one or couple Valdez guys that come to mind?
Yeah, it'd have to be a couple, right? I mean, there's a few that did not really play for him. The first one is Drew Polito, his nephew. Drew Polito is a man out of his era. He should have played back with us because he was a fighter and he fought. And so he was much more akin to our type of game, which was a street ball, play at the park, no referees type of street fight. Polito's one of them. Todd Brandenburg only played 14 games in a Bayshore Christian uniform, and it was for Coach Sam. But I'll go to my grave saying that dude was more hardcore than anyone I ever watched, more than any of us. He should have played back in the 80s as well because he gave everything. And he's, we did a podcast with him. I mean, he acted in Hollywood. He's been to China. He's been around the world. He's like a Renaissance man. What a great guy. But back then he was serious about ball and he was great at it. I would of course say as a Valdez guy. Kenny Brown was probably a Valdez guy because he was a street fighter. But Fred Tomasello is the top of the list. I mean, so the Jonathan Johnson teams were pretty teams. I don't think they got into brawls. They relied on Jonathan and their size with Tree and Fielder. Derek and Andrick were Showtime. There wasn't much. You didn't need a fight there because they beat everybody by 500 points. I mean, bing, bang. Which way did they go? Where did who go? Peterson's teams were gritty. I think Albert Beckman is probably a Valdez guy. He would probably get in a street fight. I don't know about Joe Place. So if you make all these lists, I'd say Fred Tomasello. Fred Tomasello was as gritty and as tough as they come. And he was a leader. He was passionate about his teammates, loyal to his teammates. I mean, just a great person. To this day, in the city of Tampa, everyone knows Freddie Tomasello and loves him. Whoever you talk to, I know Freddie Tomasello is the greatest guy. So, but on a basketball court, he's gonna have your back, and he was great at it. So yeah.
And to be a Valdez guy, you had to be able to take an ass chewing. You were gonna get. And Freddie could do that. You couldn't talk back. You had to just sit there and. Yeah, if not, you get a headbutt if you said something.
Yes.
So you have to be able to take a good butt chewing.
There's a vein that's coming.
Oh,
grabs the jersey, but real close. I don't even really see that he's grabbing the jersey. The head then butts. Yes, it's certainly an experience, and you have to be a Valdez guy to live through it. Absolutely. And all of us are better for it. I'd give $1 million to go back and get another headbutt again right now.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So yeah, he's an excellent example of many that are Valdez guys.
Okay, so then the next question I'd have for you would be the top 25. I know from talking to you, you got a lot of emails, text messages. This person should have been on, this person shouldn't have been on, and so forth. So who do you think should have been on that wasn't? But if you're going to put someone on a list, we're only doing 25, you got to take someone off.
That's
so
right.
Before you answer, one person that I'd like to mention that he gets overlooked a lot in these podcasts, and it's probably because of his personality. We nicknamed him Mr. No Expression. With Steve Heston, you couldn't tell if we were up by 10 or down by 10. He was the same way. But, Steve didn't get a lot of mention, but let me tell you, that 84 team, the very first team ever to go to the Final Four, you had Kenny Cox had a 13-14 game run at the end of the season where he averaged, I think, about 20 points a game. Mike Kendall, of course, John Edwards, JoJo Santiago, a lot of great players on that team that have been mentioned, but our most valuable player was Steve Heston.
Right. That's right.
That was voted on by Dibble, Coach Valdez, Coach Lanier. He was our most valuable of that 84 team. So he's one person that, to be honest with you, I would put on before me. So if I'm going to put someone on, I'll take myself off. Steve should have been on that list before me. So that's one. So who do you think should have been on there?
Well, when Chris and I compiled it, and again, all of this is repetitive, but we said it on that night. That was the last episode we had, Chris, and that was a few months ago, back in August. We have been working on it for a year because that was the original reason we did this whole thing, was to put together a list, top 25 lists. We just could not. We did not. Bayshore has had 50 years, I think 46 graduating classes, probably about 950 to maybe 1,100 graduates. I've not counted it up, but the average class is probably 20 to 25 students. In the early days, you had 10. In the late 80s, you had 40. In the mid 90s, Jonathan Johnson, I think, only had 10, and then it jumped up to 40. I mean, so there's a mix. You probably end up 20, 25. You don't replace all 12 players every year. So we figured 6 spots a year. I mean, one year you might replace all 12. The next year you don't replace any. They stay on JV. So that leaves you about 275 to 300 kids who played basketball at Bayshore, that were individuals that were on a roster for Bayshore. So we felt like 10% of that, a little bit less than 10%, it ends up, was a good number for this 50th anniversary. People can make their own lists, and we encouraged people to do so. And this list can change over time as more information comes. If you get 5 people to do a list, you'll get 5 different lists. We took your list, we took Coach Pippen, 5 other people that contributed plus our own. We scored it. We had like 20 different metrics. We shared all of that online. So yeah, you figured out how we arrived at these decisions. And I agree with you. I'm on the list, and I'm the one making the list. I didn't vote for myself, obviously, but I had the good fortune of you guys thinking of me. I would take myself off as well to add someone else. Heston is certainly a great example because he was the MVP of the Final Four team. People lose sight of that. At the same time, while y'all loved Heston, the reality was a lot of guys on that team had high-level statistics, and the voters from the newspaper thought Edwards and Santiago and Cox were the all-state guys. So there you go. There's competing reasons. Do you put him on or do you not? I certainly think, looking back, Heston at a minimum is honorable mention, and he certainly could fit on the list ahead of some other people. The 2 people that I thought, one that Chris and I probably missed, was a guy by the name of David Fitzgerald, who graduated in, I guess, 2020. We initially looked at his data when we started all the way back in March of 2020. And I think we forgot. About him. I think we looked at it, moved on, and did not keep him on the list, because that kid, he averaged about 15 to 17 points a game, both his junior and senior year, had 21 points in a state semifinal game. I never got to see enough video, but that suggests to me that we missed. He probably should be on the list. And then probably Jared Piazza. he's on, Jared's my friend. Jared helped us with the site with videos, got us in touch with Diane Brooks. I mean, Jared's done a lot for us. He's my personal friend and I love him. He probably, if you just take his junior year, would be a kid that you could consider, because the junior year video that I now have that he sent to me is big time. He was a big time performer on that Final Four team. The problem for Jared is his senior year, he was going through a lot, with, I think his father passed, or he was going through some personal things. If his father didn't pass that year, maybe he was living with someone else. So his performance on the court, was not the same as his junior year. But in terms of greatest player of all time, he's certainly one that we should have considered and didn't have enough video. And David Fitzgerald, I think in retrospect, probably belongs somewhere on the list. But just to conclude, this list will change at the next 50th anniversary, 75th anniversary. Other people can do their lists. I am biased against recency bias. I'm biased against, I don't want to look at the recent teams until they're older grown men. We have a better reflection of who they played, how they played. So that probably harmed the Fitzgerald selection. So Piazza and Fitzgerald are the two I think of. I think Hessen's a really good one. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm looking at the list now. It doesn't look like we had, Kenny Brown didn't graduate from Bayshore.
Yeah, Kenny Brown didn't graduate. And, he played that first year, had a heck of a year for sure. I mean, he was second team or first team All-State that year.
Yeah, he was.
Ahead of Edwards.
If he comes back, he certainly is going to be on this list probably. Mike Kendall, another one, rests in peace. I mean, we've lost so many. We lost Danny Strickland within the last 12 to 18 months to brain cancer. We lost Mike Blocker to COVID. Kendall, I don't remember when he passed. It was a couple of years back.
It's been a while ago.
A while back, yeah. But so many of our friends dying too young, and we miss them greatly. But Kendall would be one for sure on another list. Again, greatest player, not famous name, not your teammate. I remember Jeff Wooten. Jeff, if you're watching, you listed all your teammates, Harrison Higginbotham. Those are all great guys. I wish all those guys come out to the homecoming event. We'll hang out, go spend some time together. It'll be great. But we went on the data, wins against replacement. If you take this guy off this team, what happens to it? All those type of things that went into the decision. So we think it's a good list. We probably just missed a couple. So I think
there's always going to be debate when you make a list, for sure.
Right.
Melissa, you have anything?
I'm looking forward to the 15th. I don't really go anywhere. I don't have any trips planned or anything. So I just think it'll be super cool. And of course, setting foot in that building for me, that's home. So
Melissa wants to ask Steve, what was your favorite podcast episode? That's what she wants to ask.
I was saying it with my heart.
Absolutely. So there's no doubt this is probably everyone's favorite episode. The 1990s cheerleaders, greatest entertainment in the history of comedy. I mean, you can't watch that episode and not laugh out loud, even if you didn't go to Bayshore. And it all started with Melissa's opening story, where we have the cheerleaders returning to the Final Four.
Oh.
Yes.
On the Sunshine Skyway.
Completely.
Girls, don't look over there. Sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot.
Chris and I are unprepared for this story being told on the air. And we're like,
that's the one that the guy, you guys, there was a guy in a car, right? And
yes.
Nude and lascivious.
Even though I've cursed a couple times, I'm not going to go that far.
I'll never be able to unsee it. But hey, neither will anybody else that was on that van with me that day. So
right.
Well, let me tell you, Melissa, after hearing that, I went to school and told a couple teachers, and no one has ever heard of anything like that before. Seeing that take place as somebody's driving. Yeah, that's a classic.
First time for everything, John. First time for everything.
That's classic. Sure.
I encourage people, listen, I'm telling you, I would not encourage new parents for Bayshore to go watch it. But all of us who are graduates, you have to watch that episode.
It
It's
was
the
fun.
funniest thing I've ever seen. I mean, Julie Griffith is talking about striper music with Kyle Frisco.
Mhm.
Her first kiss, I think, was with a Jesuit guy or in some hallway. I mean, this is
Oh, the
prime.
hallway. Yes, we found out about the hall. Some of you found out about the hallway that night
No,
too.
I know that hallway's there, but I never knew that happened in the
You
hallway.
didn't know that was the hallway.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the funniest thing. I mean, even my wife, who knows none of them. I mean,
The,
I hope she meets you guys, but she thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever watched.
that was
So
a fun reunion for me too.
yeah, it was really good. Jacqueline Searcy, Jackie Cortez, Julie Griffith, Amanda Bush, Amanda Kiavansa, if I pronounce it correctly. Sorry, Amanda. And of course, Chris and I. It was a really great episode. Ultimately, we got Herman early. Coach Valdez was one of the first guests. And so you knew that it was going to be great content. But ultimately, Chris and I knew a lot of what Herman was going to say because we lived it, much like you, John. So we lived it. But it was great to be with our coach. And so that was wonderful. But we knew it was going to be more than just us doing top 25s when we started calling around and hearing from people. And when we got Brian Peterson on, that took it to another level because he's such a gentleman and leading figure in Tampa. And then we got Derek Smith. I mean, when you get Derek Smith, I mean, he's high level guy in terms of basketball in Tampa. So all of these shows were great in and of themselves. I can't really remember one that wasn't enjoyable to watch, but if you're ranking them, there is nothing remotely equivalent to the 1990s cheerleaders. That is the best episode ever.
So with that, then who would you have liked to see? What type of podcast? I mean, of course, I know everybody's going to say Dibble.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're going to say that to me. You can't, from 1982, I mean, just how Dibble got to our school and became a teacher. You know, it's a story I can't even tell on air. Yeah, that one, how he became an actual teacher.
You have to open up one of those cold case files, which we don't want to be responsible for.
Yeah, but you can't, from 82 to his last year. What was that, Steve? 2003? That Dibble coached at Bayshore?
2001.
2001. So from 82 to 2001, if you were at Bayshore, you have a Dibble story. For me, a multitude of Dibble stories. And everybody that's been on here that was in that time frame, you know, does his impersonation. Hey. But besides Dibble, because I think that's the obvious one, I'm speaking for you, but who else would you have liked to seen on here that we weren't able to get on?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, starts with Dibble. I had made a list. You know, we've been in touch with Dibble. We talked to him. He just doesn't want to do a podcast, and that's fine. I mean, the man wants to maintain his privacy, and we totally respect that. Chris Patterson is one I would like to have done. Chris Patterson, like Dibble, goes deep into Bayshore history, like Melissa. I mean, he goes back to the 70s at Bayshore. So his grandparents were big time in the church. Tony Dice, this is Dice, right?
Yeah.
Dice. So he was one I would like to interview. You know, one of our great friends, both of us, all of us. So that was one. John Fielder, we were in touch with. John's schedule, he's always like working nights, so it's hard to get him on, and ultimately we were unable to do it. Mr. Cabot, I had Mr. Cabot locked in, but he's had some stuff going on that didn't allow us to do it. Maybe that'll change in the future. When we say this is the last podcast, it is. This is the last podcast in this format, but it doesn't preclude, you know, we're going to have future Valdez dinners. We're going to have homecoming. There isn't things we can't record and create content for people to have nostalgia and memories of Bayshore that will be put on in the future. And we certainly hope other people take the lead. Maybe John Bailey, who loves doing this sort of stuff, maybe he'll do podcasts, maybe 21st century graduates. So that's what I think of. Fielder, Mr. Cabot. Fred Lewis. Fred Lewis was a Pippen player who, when Pippen came back to coach in the late 2000s, 06 to 09, Pippen got us a district title and 2 winning seasons. And all of a sudden the bottom fell out. We went 11-12 the next year with Fred Lewis and BJ Day. And I think Carson Day may have still been on the team. How did that happen? Why didn't they come back and go further? that would have been an interesting story to find out, because Fred Lewis, of course, went on. He's a Tampa legacy. His dad, Chamberlain, played at UT or USF. He played at UT.
USF.
USF, right. And his son played at UT.
Yeah, right.
Andre Stevenson, I would have liked to have interviewed. Of course, I didn't get to go because of having COVID, but a lot of people got to see him in the summer when we had those reunions at Fat Willie's, and then the basketball one down at Carmine's and Ebor.
Yeah, class act, man. That guy's a class act.
Yeah. He's one of the greatest people in the world. I mean, he's just the greatest.
Class act. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we wanted to do an episode, and we just didn't have the stomach to put it together. Joe Finlan,
Okay.
Steve Logeman, and Chris Corciani all agreed to come on. But we didn't want to do just one episode for them. We wanted it all together. We couldn't coordinate it. That was one of the great things about this. We're reconnecting with so many friends, so many Bayshore friends, like the three of us here reconnecting. I was able to connect with Corciani. And for basketball people know who Corciani is. NBA with the Celtics and Magic, all-time leading ACC assist guy at NC State. I just looked up on the internet, and he's like a real estate guy in North Carolina. I called the number and he answered. So I'm asking him, do you have a copy of the 1984 State Final Four? And he laughs and says, no, I don't have a copy of that. But they were all willing to come on. Joe Finlan, of course, the winningest. Herman Valdez is the greatest coach in Florida basketball history, but Finlan is now the winningest coach in Tampa history because he's been doing it for 40 years. Joe was willing to come on, and of course Logeman was as well. So maybe that'll be happening sometime in the future. I think that would be a really interesting episode. But there's so many. I mean, Mrs. Wynant it comes in for a lot of love from the students, and she was my English teacher. I would have liked to have interviewed her. Certainly Mrs. Jordan, Kathy Jordan, the Bible teacher. There's so many stories there that are funny, and she was great. So I think there's so many, and those are the ones that I can think of right off the top. I'd like to know who you guys would have liked to have interviewed on this.
Well, you never told me that about Corciani. Like,
Oh,
did Corciani even remember? No, you never told me that you got in contact with him.
I got his number right here. We're gonna put it on live.
Did he actually remember playing Bayshore, Steve, in '84?
Yeah, I mean, like anybody else would, answering the phone. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, so I don't know the depth of his memory because
that guy played a lot of basketball, man.
Right.
4-year starter at NC State. He played 2 or 3 years in the NBA and like 7 or 8 years over in Italy.
Yep.
If he remembered all, if he could remember like any of all that game, that would be amazing.
Well,
that would have been.
He had a coach like Herman that was a basketball legend. It was
Lenny Rosenblatt.
That's right. And so
from North Carolina.
So I think
he played for Dean Smith.
Yeah. And I think that people like the three of us, memories from high school like really stand out. And so I do think that he probably remembers a lot. I think that he described it as a pop-up school. He said Kendall Acres was just a pop-up school. Meaning it was brand new, small. But I do think he probably has a lot of memories from that time. And he probably remembers playing us. I think that was honest. He was willing to come on do an episode. I said, Chris, if I needed you to do a podcast with Coach Herman Valdez and Bayshore Christian, this is before I think I even had called you. Would you be willing to come on? He said, yeah, sure. So he was really game for that sort of fun. I thought that was neat.
Well, the other, for me, it would have been Finland. I mean, Dibble, of course, but I would have loved to hear Finland's take on stuff that we have said about Tampa Prep in those early years. I wanted to see if he remembered that story when he came to the park that I was working at, him and the coach at Florida College, trying to get me going a little bit. But I would have loved to have to hear Finland's take on, Bayshore, his first 2 years, and, thereafter, kind of chasing Bayshore. I would have loved to have heard his story for sure.
Yeah, a couple of times I've talked to him on the phone actually, and he said, and that's how I knew he'd be willing to do this. He had shared a couple of Herman stories that were really funny. There's a really good Finland story when he finally beat us. I want to say it was like 1989. They beat us on a buzzer beater. So he's storming onto the court, like hopping on one leg, sort of like trying to guide the ball into the basket and it goes in and he sticks his hands up in the air in celebration, finally getting over the Bayshore hump. He has really loved the 90s discussion. So I know that he's heard us talk about Andrick's departure, how that probably shifted the fortunes of both programs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would love to hear his take on that, Steve.
Yeah.
Like, you know, how Frazier ended up at Tampa Prep. I mean, it's been talked about, but I would love to hear his viewpoint on how he, you know, did he have a hand in it or did he not have a hand? Was it just purely academics, like some people have said, you know, or how did that play itself out? He would have been a great one. I mean, he was right there, you know, at the beginning.
Yeah. Maybe we will try to do another podcast at some point in the future and get him on. I'd like to know who Melissa would have liked to have interviewed.
Oh, unrelated to basketball.
It could be anybody.
Sure.
You know, I still know a lot of my teachers. So I would have loved to just get on there like with a whole bunch of my teachers and told them different things that I remember about them. Not only because I am a teacher, but because when I was at Bayshore, I was very much well, I loved it. I loved everything about my life, I think, until I turned like 13. But then I spent the rest, like the part that you're supposed to really love and enjoy, middle and high, I was mostly just resentful that I was still going to school there because my dad and my grandmother worked there. And I wanted to be somewhere where you could just go to school and be a student at that school. And for some reason in my head, it really, really robbed me of a lot of joy because I was very much trapped in that sort of resentment. So I was very busy begging my parents to let me go to Plant High School, and that wasn't going to happen. And so I don't guess I missed a lot because I remember it now, but I'm pretty confident a lot of my teachers might not know I have the types of memories that I do of them. The degree of fondness and really the specific memories that I have too.
Like which teacher? Give me one you have fond memories of.
Like Miss Ballon, like when you said about I mean, now I'm a writer. Like I am a writer in my blood, and not everybody can say that. I love to write, truly. I'm good at it. It's just in my bones. It's a strength. So I'm sure that helps it helps you like something. But Ms. Ballon, I mean, that class, like she just challenged me. And I remember one day, like I don't know, I guess I'd had a rough morning or something. And she assigned this paper that to me was like just this huge, overwhelming thing. And I was like, are you kidding me? You know, I probably never said that in my life to an adult, much less to a high school teacher at Bayshore, you know, so it was Miss Ballon. You know, but I look back too, though, and I think about what I can do as a writer. And a lot of that came from her, and it came from even Miss Sullivan in the years before Miss Ballon. So
wasn't Miss Sullivan had a different married name?
She was Conover and Sullivan, I think, when I was there, but before that, she was Lee, or I think her maiden name was Bryce. Tiffany Bryce went to school with us. Her daughter, I believe.
I remember.
But yeah, so that's just, you asked for an example of a teacher that, you know, high school, I had my moments. I mean, and I never told her what a positive impact she had on me. So people don't know these things unless you tell them. And so that was one example.
Mrs. Ballon comes in for a lot of love on these podcasts. I mean, a lot of students refer to her as being a huge impact and inspiration. So that's certainly great to hear yet another student who drew inspiration from her teaching and her leadership. I missed a bunch of the comments I missed because I don't know why I wasn't seeing them. But Jim Brown, we got to mention Jim Brown because this is pre-Empire days. Jim, his brother Joe, Reggie Sanford. We had Jim and Reggie Sanford for a podcast. He's commenting, and this is probably back when I was talking about maybe ending up at Temple Heights. He said, no, you know, Jim and I got to meet one another through this page of this podcast. And the nicest men in the world, yet another Bayshore guy accomplished, worked for the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, FBI, a cop. he's just a great guy, long-term career of success. And we just went to lunch, talked Bayshore basketball. It's amazing. And he's older than us, and we're old, so we're all in this old category. But we're remembering the games from that time, and he was playing during pre-Empire days. This is pre-Valdez, and it was dicey back then. So to see those guys who gave everything to represent the school before the winning started, and to be able to meet them and get to talk to them and develop friendships is really neat. I mean, it's just really neat. I consider him a very good friend now, even though we have no large period of time of connection, if that's the way to describe it. But it was great getting to befriend him, and I wanted to mention that because he's watching as well. So those are good questions. Melissa wanted to shout out Miss Balan, who I knew as Miss Wynant. We covered who we may have wanted to cover in a podcast. What else have we got left?
Okay, well, first of all, when you said about Jim Brown being a police officer, I just remembered he pulled me over for speeding.
See that?
He didn't give me a ticket though. Yeah, I just remember that. I was coming home from Rome and Sly Park playing basketball on Rome, right by Rome and Hillsborough Avenue. He pulled me over and he recognized me, and I begged him. I was like, please, man.
What year was that? What year was it?
1983, 84. I mean, he was just a police officer.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is so.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I was begging him, please don't give me a ticket, man. My dad will whip my, you know what, if I come home with the ticket, man. And he just gave me a warning. I just remembered that. So the next thing
please.
go ahead.
Please.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say
So the next question would be for me to you is you always asked everybody some fond memories. Basketball or non-basketball, what stories, stick out in your mind?
We've said a lot of them. Most of the ones that are the funniest probably can't be repeated, so that my children don't think it's okay to do those things. Obviously, remembering running Bayshore Boulevard and Mike Blocker mooning the Academy of Holy Names cheerleaders is way up there. Going to getting thrown out of Miss Balan's class, then Miss Wynant, either I was sleeping while she was talking or something to that effect, and going to tell Coach Dibble, and Dibble bursting into laughter and saying, just go back to class and tell her I paddled you or something. That's
Oh my God.
My sister serving as teacher assistant. This is not me, but it's so funny. Just serving as Dibble's teacher assistant with Chris Patterson, and every single day they were supposed to sweep the gym and pick up the PE garbage and all that, and Patterson would make my sister do it, and him and Dibble would play checkers. So my sister, she's a sophomore, is the one in there cleaning while Dibble and Patterson are playing checkers. Really, Coach Valdez bringing us back from the Shorecrest loss. I mean, Kevin Noriega, I hope you're watching, Kevin. We had a full court play. We're supposed to call timeout underneath, go to run box. Instead, Noriega thinks it'd be better for him to shoot it instead of call timeout underneath. He misses. We lose by 1. No talking in the locker room. Come back and run suicides at Bayshore well into the night. That was really a good one. There's just everything on the red top. Being in the lunchroom with you guys and what was that guy's name? Rob Cash. Rob Cash walks by you guys and trips and spills his Coke on you guys on the table, and y'all are like, Cash, what are you doing, Cash? You know we're gonna have to take care of this, don't you? And so y'all drag Cash across the red top into the locker room, and we all go to watch and do the usual things that you can't say on the show to poor Rob Cash, throw him in the shower with his clothes on, things like that. None of this, obviously, I hope that we're not using this for marketing material for the school today. Those are really some of the good ones. Bible class, I think I told this before, Miss Jordan was teaching love, sex, and marriage from a biblical perspective. Patterson raised his hand and asked what her experience was, and he got so all of this was there's nothing like Bayshore Christian. There's literally nothing like Bayshore Christian. Those are the memories that I can, off the top of my head, think of. Not a lot of basketball memories. I mean, basketball was pretty much business from my perspective. Playing at Bayshore Christian was such a privilege. I mean, it was the thing I wanted most in the world at that age, was to be able to go to Bayshore and play basketball, and then to be able to do it. And then to face the challenge of no Bernard Staley, yet living up to the reputation of Bayshore. That was one of the greatest things I was ever a part of, ever. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah, it was such a family atmosphere. I told you before, you know, I played 5 years of college basketball because I was redshirted my freshman year in Tennessee. Nothing compared to high school basketball for me. You know, if I had to list the 10 games or 10 situations in basketball that I could go back and do again, it would all be from high school. You know, it wouldn't be anything from college. And I'm not trying to brag by any means, but like my senior year, we only won 3 games and I hit the game winner in all 3. And I still, you know, that would be so far down the line. It would always be Bayshore, even practice. I would love to be able to somehow be able to go back and spend another week and just practice. Man, I loved the practices. They were so competitive, and it was just, everything about it was just so special, for sure.
The practices in many cases were sometimes more difficult than the games.
Oh, the coach used to tell us that. You know,
I'm sorry.
He used to tell us, you know, the games are going to be a piece of cake. You know, he would create, you know, how tough practices would be, whether it was running or those drills we would do, man, where we had to take charges and, you know, like stuff that you can't do nowadays. Man, we used to remember the drill, Steve, rolling the ball and 2 lines, and you had to dive. You know, you had to dive, practice diving for loose ball.
You're running full speed from both baselines towards one another with no pads, diving for the ball. There was another drill he did where he'd stick you with the basketball in the middle of the lane, and you had 2 guys on each side of you, and you had to pivot for 1 minute while they were allowed. You couldn't do it today, but they were allowed to slap you to try to pull the ball out of your hands. And I was trying to get the guy to be tough enough to not have the ball taken out of his hands. It was just the greatest experience any athlete could have. Scott Crone is asking me to name the craziest player on or off the court and why from my era. Well, Chris Pate was the craziest, and I can't really describe most of the off-court craziness. Mark King ended up being real crazy. People don't hear that name a lot. Mark went on to a career in special forces, fought serving the country. And
did he?
Yeah.
Mary King's brother?
I guess so. Yeah. Mark King graduated with me. Is that his sister? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mary King's brother. What branch of the service was he in?
Well, it was a special forces. So it was a Green Beret SEALs. I don't know, Ranger.
Wow.
He went to Iraq, Afghanistan, fought for us. He was pretty crazy, but in a good way. But yeah, I mean, that team, the 86 team was all business, because if we weren't, we would lose. We did not have the size or the talent. Everything had to be about business. So I hope that answered the question. Pate was the crazy.
Well, for me, it would be Kenny. For me, it would be Kenny Cox.
Yeah, no question, right? No question.
Yeah. Kenny Cox, Kenny Brown, but Kenny Cox, since I had 2 years with him. Yeah, Kenny was off and on the court.
Yeah,
he was he was pretty crazy.
Melissa's about to say something. You want
Well,
to?
Sorry.
Just that, you know, I talked earlier, like I might have been some of these games, but Kenny Cox, I remember, I was young, but he had a sister, Julie Cox, right?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it had to be the same Kenny. He had dark hair. That was back when the uniforms were shiny and maroon.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I just remember Kenny. I remember Kenny playing on the court. I remember him dribbling, running up and down the court. I don't have a specific craziness story, but.
Well, who's the craziest person you remember from Bayshore? We're almost done, guys, and I can't thank you enough. We're near wrapping up. Melissa, who was the craziest person you knew at Bayshore?
Person?
The person.
Oh,
Crazy.
boy, this could take a while. I don't know. Person, the craziest person. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know, Steve. I'm really way too on the spot for that one. That would be one of those, you have to give me 3 names and I pick one.
Gotcha. So we won't go there then right now.
Don't ask me. And my brother also still makes fun of me every time I see him now because you asked me who is my favorite point guard and I said, John Blocker, because it was the only name I thought of and I don't know who the point guards were. So like,
That was a good pick though. That's a good pick.
Yeah, very
oh
good pick.
gosh.
But it wasn't your brother. You should have named your brother.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't quick with the draw like that.
You were too busy thinking of all the times that your friends were at Britton Plaza and you were not allowed
Exactly. Yes.
to. John, I want to make sure before we close out to say that on the top 10 games, I'm not saying that it would have made the top 10, but we failed to mention Major Bloom's game-winning buzzer beater against
Major Bloom. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Santa Fe Catholic in the district championship game. It was another
Yeah.
one. You had to be there, right? Weren't you there?
I was coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how that happened? Because again, it's a game that during the regular season we win like 20 or 30 points, and then it's down to the buzzer in districts. What happened?
Steve, I have such a great memory on so many details of basketball games. That one I don't remember. I just remember that we were in a dogfight with Santa Fe, and we shouldn't have been. And Peterson didn't have a good game, and I can't remember the details. I want to say it was an inbounds play. We did a timeout underneath, and I think it might have been box. And Major got it and put it in at the buzzer. I'm pretty sure, but not real sure.
So I want to go real quick and also list, you asked me about my favorite stories. I left a few out that were about you and Melissa. Well, I already mentioned Melissa's, and that was the person in the car going off the Skyway Bridge. I mean, no one will ever, that's the greatest story ever. But also, John, you've said on previous podcasts, and these are some of my favorites. One was when Coach Valdez took the whole team to the mall to pass out for a donor, and y'all instead said, it's too hot, you dump them in the trash can, and Herman was watching y'all dump it in the trash can. So he drives up with the van and gets y'all to get them out of the trash can and put them on all the cars. And then, of course, the one with, because I remember having to clean it up when the seniors put the real estate signs all over the campus for senior skip day or whatever, and you toilet papered everything. And me and Patterson, Freddie Tomasello, a guy by the name of Scott Perpura, we're all out having to take the toilet paper down from the trees, but they don't have anything to reach it. So Manny Yanis, the janitor, who could not speak English, Valdez is telling him in Spanish what to do, and we're getting the bamboo poles trying to take all the toilet paper y'all threw. Those are some of my favorite memories as well. So
my favorite one is, those are two great ones too. The one with the mall, that was my first experience, of how hardcore Coach was. Like we threw those flyers in the garbage can. We went into West Shore Mall, went to the game room, went to the meeting place. And when he asked us, oh yeah, we got them all on, let's go back to school, and thought, once he, we discovered that he knew, okay, yeah, we're sorry. Okay, we'll go get them. Like, what? It was like, that was 2 hours ago, Coach. There's going to be other garbage in there, man. He made us dig them out and go put those flyers back on, man. I went home and told my dad, was like, man, you can't get away with anything with this guy, man. Because that was like, that might have been like the first weekend of school that he told, had us come to the gym on Saturday to play. And then I don't remember how it happened, man, but some guy came in and said, I'll give you $200 if your guys will put these flyers on cars.
Didn't he make y'all, so you had to do all that, and you still had to go back to the gym and run suicides.
Oh yeah, we thought
Kendall was running his mouth. Give us some more, or something like that.
Oh yeah, the craziest person might have been Mike Kendall. Yeah, Kendall did some crazy stuff, man. No, that one, so Steve, that one was, we're going back to the gym and we're thinking, okay, we're going to go play. And then he's making us run suicides, and again, coming from Middleton, junior high, 8th and 9th grade, man, we didn't even run suicides. We just ran like a couple sprints and that was it, and we're getting timed. and Kendall's chirping. Yeah, that was a pretty funny one. But the funniest one for me, which it turned out bad, but throwing Aaron Moon in the Joy Pond.
Yeah.
That was pretty
You
funny.
guys threw somebody in there?
That's not even.
How did I never hear that story?
That's not the best.
Oh, yeah.
The best
Oh
part.
my gosh, that was always like the swamp. Like nobody goes in that water on the Joy property.
Listen,
Yeah, my
That's not the
junior
best
year, the guy Steve Hess and I talked about, he was a senior. And we all had PE the last period of the day. And it was the last day for seniors. And we all said, Steve, we got to do something that everyone will remember you by from years to come. So we said, on the way coming back in, let's throw somebody in the Joy Pond. And so as we're walking back, it was me, Kenny Cox, Steve Heston, and I can't, me, Kenny Cox, Steve
Frazier,
Heston.
what about Steve Frazier?
No, because Frazier had already graduated.
Rogers,
But
Brian Rogers.
there was four. There was four of us, and we happened to. Who?
Brian Rogers.
No, Brian wasn't there. He came my senior year. I think it was JoJo.
Yeah,
It was JoJo. And Aaron Moon comes walking by, and we're like, let's get Moon. So we grabbed him, and I don't think, we did the old 1, 2, 3. It was just the three of us. I had his hands, and Steve and Kenny had one leg each. And I really didn't think they were going to let go. So I figured if I let go, they're going to hold on. And they thought the same thing. And Aaron Moon wasn't a big kid. He was a 9th grader. We threw, but as we were doing it, he says, wait, take off. He had a new pair of Nikes. So we take off his shoes for him. 1, 2, 3. We throw him. He goes in the middle, goes under that green stuff. He goes under, and we're like, oh man, I hope he comes up. He comes up.
I hope he comes up. Spoken like a true high school boy.
Oh, it gets better. He comes.
Oh yeah, we're
walking
not to the
out,
good part yet.
and he has a cut on his foot about 6 inches long, bleeding everywhere.
Gosh.
And you talk about true high school boy. The first thing I thought of, I said, Aaron, don't tell anybody. I can go get some athletic tape and peroxide, and we'll clean it up, and I'll doctor you up.
Oh,
You
you could have cost him his foot. Oh my God.
There's a
Kenny Cox is
blood
the
mark.
voice of reason. Kenny Cox is the voice of reason, John. I think he has to actually go to the hospital. I don't think we should just tape it up.
Oh my God.
Right. Melissa, that'll tell you, the guy that I said was the craziest, we get him back in the locker room, and I'm trying to get peroxide and tape, and Kenny says, John, I think he needs stitches, man. I can see inside there. So yeah, man, I said, Aaron, man, please don't tell your parents that this happened. And we just took off. And that night was the baseball banquet. So the baseball coach gets finished handing out the awards, and I'm with my parents, and I see Coach Valdez come streaming towards me. And I was like, come on, Mom, Dad, let's go. We got to go. Let's go.
Busted.
Over. Oh man.
Wow, buddy.
But we had told Steve, because he was a senior, so we said, it was just the three of us. Me and Kenny took the brunt. We said, Steve, we'll just say it was me and Kenny, so you don't get in trouble. And me and Kenny, the first week of summer, we had to be at school from 8 in the morning to like 3 in the afternoon. He gave us a paint scraper, and we had to scrape gum, mow the grass. I thought I was kicked out of school.
Right.
I literally went home and thought my senior year I'll be at Hillsborough High School.
But that's a precursor. That is a precursor to Florida Gator Camp, which this actually is the #1 story. When you guys stuffed Noriega in an Army duffel bag.
Oh yeah.
Zip it up.
Tied it. No, lock it up.
He was not small.
Noriega's like, Jesus God, let me out. Oh, Jesus God, let me out.
Oh my God.
You guys go.
In the pool.
Let's throw him in the pool, and the bag stops moving. The bag stops moving, and then all of a sudden, Jesus God, let me out. Jesus God. You drag him to the pool. You go 1, 2. We wouldn't do that to you, Kevin. And then you dumped him off the 3-meter board down into the Olympic pool. That is the greatest story ever told.
You know, we throw him in the pool and he starts sinking and we're all looking at each other. Who's going to go in and get him? You know, we're like, man, he's not Harry Houdini. We better get in there and get him, man. He's not getting out of that duff. Huh?
So the craziest person then was you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Very good.
I did some pretty crazy things. There would be a lot of people who would come on this podcast, and if you asked them, David Sellers, Phil Sellers, they would all say it was probably me. Yeah.
I could certainly laugh at more stories, I'm sure, but speaking of crazy, my son is in 4th grade and still has math homework to do. So I need to go help him with his comparing and ordering fractions.
But listen, let's wrap up and let's allow Melissa to say her final words. This is the last episode in this format for the Alumni podcast. Melissa, you've been helping us these last 19 months with all these shows, and can't thank you enough. And what's your final words as we sign off?
I've just so enjoyed every moment. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I will look forward to seeing everybody on January 15th, 2021. 22. And hopefully once or twice after that, maybe.
Very good. Thank you very much, Melissa. I appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch because I got to get those scrapbooks from you. So we'll definitely see you January 15th. Thank you again.
Guys, have a good night.
All right. See you, Melissa. Tell your dad I said hi.
Yes.
I sure will, John.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
John, I don't know how I'm going to recover from all that laughter. So
I guess it's time to wrap up, Steve.
Yeah. So we talked about what we might have missed on the top 25 team. Probably not much. People are entitled to their own lists, but we think we got it right, other than maybe 1 or 2. We covered what was our favorite episode, unanimously, the cheerleaders. We gave out a lot of thank yous, and if we missed somebody, please let us know, because we want to make sure to thank you for all that you helped us with the Facebook page and the podcast. The thanks certainly start with Chris Pate, who thought of all this and did most of the early work to get this thing going. He provided great food and good times at his restaurant when we had the reunion during the summer. So really enjoyed it. What's your last thoughts, John?
Well, one would be, again, to thank you guys. Man, it's been a joy to bring back these memories and to reconnect with people. And just, man, I am so glad that I played for a guy like Coach Valdez. I'm not into high school sports like as much as you are, Steve, but I mean, I'm a high school teacher and I'm still involved in it.
You've got a big time football son, and we're praying for you. He had some injuries and we're praying for him, but you've got a big football guy. So,
but on my wife's side, her brother's kids play sports and her sister's son, and all that they talk about is playing at the next level. And even though we had a lot of guys play at the next level, we didn't talk about that. Coach used to say, if you're good enough to play in college, you'll play somewhere. But the most important thing is, and you had mentioned it, and so have I, Coach used to tell us, hopefully you guys are going to live the average lifespan of a male, 75, 80. And at 70 years old, if you're still talking about the proper way to shoot, I failed you as a coach. Through basketball, through sports, the lessons we learned, determination, always giving 100%, sacrificing for the team, dedication, sportsmanship, wanting to win, but winning with class, poise in class. Those are things that I still use today in my life. When I have a tough situation coming up in my life, real tough, or just I'm mowing my yard and I'm trying to get through it during the summertime, I always hear Coach Valdez when we were running suicides, fourth quarter. This is the fourth quarter, boys. Who's gonna make it? Who's gonna be the strongest? I still think that today. And when I'm faced with a difficult decision, I still think like, course, my father and then Coach Valdez, how would they handle this? And when you said about disappointment, to this day, I don't want to disappoint Coach Valdez.
Very good.
You know, when I've had some trials and tribulations in my life, and I made some poor decisions, I literally to myself thought, man, I hope Coach Valdez doesn't ever hear about this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something to be said. You know, Bayshore just really changed my trajectory on life. I'm not highly successful. I'm just, you know, a high school teacher. Been doing it a long time, but man, any sort of success I've had is directly related, not just to Coach Valdez. He's at the top of the food chain, but Mr. Cabot, Miss Fuller, Miss Jordan, Miss Wynette, just the atmosphere. You know, I feel like in my own family, like I'm different than my sister because I went to a Christian high school and she didn't, you know, and I'm not saying it in a bad way that I'm better or whatever, but you know, it's just, I experienced something that, or we all did, that not many people get to. And nowadays in sports, it's all about playing at the next level. That's all everybody talks about. And man, high school sports was so special to me. Basketball was the top, but baseball too. And I'm just so glad that we all went to Bayshore. And, you know, me and you talk, and you know, I'm praying for your mom, John. You know, I'm praying for your father, Steve. I'm praying for your family. You know, I don't do that at work. You know, I don't feel comfortable. You know, no one tells me I'm praying for you, or, you know, but here on the podcast, Bayshore people, you know, Mr. Cabot and Coach Valdez were two of the first men that I said I love you to that wasn't related to me.
Very good. Yeah.
So it's, you know, it was a special place. I hope it continues on. I hope we can all get together January 15th, or we talked about before, maybe, you know, having a get together with Coach Valdez, and hopefully we can keep that up. And just, you know, again, man, I played a real small part in helping get this going. And it's an honor to me. It really is.
Well, thanks so much, John. Yeah, honor to me as well. And we've said it a lot. And you didn't play a small role, you played a major role. Already said it all through the podcast, the thanks and the impact people had. And I just want to repeat the impact Bayshore had on the community. Like we said in the podcast, Herman is number one. He is the kingpin as far as I'm concerned, and everything in my life sort of structures around learning from him, you know, outside of my father. So my father, then Herman, when it comes to men. And we've talked about that, but I really want to reiterate so that when people watch it, they know this. Bayshore's impact across all aspects of life within our communities. You're a teacher. Melissa's a teacher. Jack Myers became a famous, a prominent pastor whose preaching has led to lives being saved for Christ
Around the world.
Around the world.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned earlier, head of Merck International Laboratories, head of the F-35 for Lockheed Martin. So you go from whether it's the guy that's running his auto shop, owns his auto shop locally, that's a Bayshore grad, who's providing for his family, who's a success, who's doing well as a business owner, to the guy that maybe his life is in trouble and needs to get back to calling Herman on the phone. Coach Valdez will be there for you. The point being, all of these people came out of an institution that has dramatically impacted, punched above their weight in terms of the communities that we all serve in. And it's just an amazing place, and nothing will ever equal it in my life. Outside of family, as we've said repeatedly, nothing was more important to me than playing at Bayshore Christian for Herman Valdez. And what a honor that it was. So.
Oh, for sure. Like, I hope those memories of mine never fade away. Yeah. You know, I hope I can remember that Plant City game, that Shorecrest game, you know, all those games, man. I hope I'd rather have a lot of memories fade from me. A lot of, you know, things that I've said and done that I wish I could do away with. But those memories there, boy, I hope, man, if I live to be however old, that I can still think to myself and think of those games and the joy and excitement it brought to us and a lot of other people. You know, like hearing Melissa saying, you know, she was 4 years old and, you know, coming to our games, and she, you know, kind of remembers a front row seat of all this. It's impactful for sure.
Absolutely. So this is it. We definitely are going to do Valdez dinners once or twice a year. We'd like to do an all Bayshore basketball guys dinner, Sam guys, Dibble guys, Rudy Toth, you know, all the guys that's ever played basketball Bayshore do one of those as well. So definitely Valdez that weekend or right before the weekend of homecoming, and other dinners. Keep getting together with reunions. We'll keep putting video games up of the games we got. Please send us video if you have it, whoever's watching this. I got 99 Fitzpatrick, 2001 Final Four team, and we got some Bo Heinley 94 and 95 seasons, which has a lot of Jonathan Johnson as well, state Final Four. But that wraps it up. We can't thank you enough. Probably 55, 60 hours of content we put together, John, and can't thank you enough for helping me tonight and helping us do these shows. And until we
My
see,
pleasure.
absolutely. Till we see each other again soon, we'll keep staying in touch on the phone for sure.
All right, brother. Love you.
Take care, John. You too. Take care.
All right, buddy.